And I want to welcome you to this interview, but tell me a little bit about what you're working on.
Well, I've been working for the last years on a film project, documentary film project. The title is The Mechanics of Peace, which is a physical and spiritual journey that glorifies war and proposes a transition from force to reason and from violence to dialogue. To do that, I've been interviewing many Nobel Peace Prize people around the world, and also activists, peace activists and peacemakers. And yeah, and mixing all these voices, I've tried to make, I've realized that there is a mechanic of peace, that they all finally get to the same issues. Like they all talk about the importance of the woman in this big change. They all talk about the importance of the children and the education of children, and also the role of the media, also the role of the disarmament, also the importance, that's something that I mentioned, the importance of forgiveness and reconciliation. So there is a way to build it, no? To find a way, no, of how we can make peace, no? And peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is action, no? And if we can work making these big wars, why don't we work making peace, no? So these people have been very inspiring, because it's people that really made it. All these Nobel Peace Prize people received the Nobel Peace Prize because they were in situations that made a change. No, they could find a way to resolve the conflicts and in a non-violent way.
And then, so how many people have you interviewed in this process?
Yeah, I've already interviewed like 20. I have already 20 interviews, and still I have left a few more. And yeah, I mean, many of them living in different parts of the world. I mean, from Tawakkul Karman, the Yemeni Spring Arab mother, also Professor Muhammad Yunus, Rigoberta Menchú in Guatemala, His Holiness Dalai Lama, Shirin Ebadi, the Iranian lawyer, Kailash Satyarthi, he's the Indian Nobel Peace Prize specifically for this subject that we are talking today of saving children from slavery, and well, many more. I mean, there is also Mr. Lech Walesa, the ex-former president of Polonia, and I don't know, Leymah Gbowee. She received the Nobel Peace Prize she was next to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in Liberia. I mean, there is lots of, also Mr. Federico Mayor Zaragoza. He's included in the film. And yeah, no, I mean, listening to all of them, finally you find out that they all finally talk about similar things. I mean, they made it in different ways, but they have common things that relates to culture of peace, no? Like disarmament, like the role of the woman in the culture of peace and in the peace education, the climate change, no, the respect for the environment, also the importance of the childhood and peace education, no, in children, and how the children, no, have and the young people also have a role, no, in building this culture of peace. because we don't see them many times as actors, no, of this big challenge that we have, and it's with these children that we need I mean, they need to be educated on this, because they are the ones that will make the world of the future. No, they are, to me, they are the hope that we have. No, and we don't see children many times as well. I mean, I think we really need to take care, no, of what we educate them and what they can achieve. It's very inspiring. So even I wanted to maybe edit a book with all the transcription of the interviews and from these wise people, no, that they are, no, we need this type of leaders, no, we need this type of, to me, they remind me like the ancient people from Greece, no, the Tebas, wise men and women, that they open our minds, and listening to them, you see clear, it is possible. Peace is possible. It's just about working for it and thinking about, and taking the time to do it.
What tell me about your experience of discovering the mechanism. It's a very intriguing title. And how does that apply to your experience, and almost like you discovered the machinery while you were doing this process? I know that's, as a filmmaker, that's often, it's like, wow, I'm learning so much, from these people. And so talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, I have to recognize that Mr. Federico Mayor Zaragoza, when I started this project, he inspired me a lot with his idea of building a culture of peace. So that was something that made me think that there has to be a way, and I think it's very nice that this concept of culture of peace, that he kind of thought about it and made me think of a mechanism, but also listening to other peacemakers. For example, Mr. Prem Rawat, he was always talking about joining together many different voices of the world. I mean, one little voice is just a small voice, but let's join many voices together. And so that those two were my initial inspirations in starting working on it. And sure, I mean, you see that there has to be, to build a culture of peace, is not just the absence of war. I mean, there has to be disarmament. There has to be, as we said, no respect for the climate change. We need to have freedom of speech and information. So it's very important, the role of the media for this culture of peace. As I said, the role of the woman, and then I added something to me that to me it was very touching. That, for example, talking to different Colombia peace personalities, they were talking that there was also the need of peace and reconciliation. Because when we have all this chaos, in this cycle of violence, and there's a moment that they were saying that something had to be cut, and so I was also interviewing, and he's in the film, Mr. Juan Manuel Santos. He was the president in Colombia when the peace process. He was a actor of this peace process, and so the need of breaking this cycle of violence, and also His Holiness Dalai Lama talks a lot about this, about how can we need, at the end, we need forgiveness. I mean, and this is something that it's very difficult. I mean, how can you ask that no forgiveness in a situation like, for example, now in Ukraine? I mean, it's so hard. It's not just stop the war. It's also how do you rebuild then? How do you get from this big scarf? No, I mean, or from how can you make peace and rebuild a society if there is not forgiveness? And in Colombia, this woman were talking that finally they made a process of trying to put people one in front of the other one, and first it was recognizing, then it was forgiveness, no, and then there was reconciliation. Mandela used to say that to forgive is possible, to forget is impossible. So we don't have to forget, but to me it's something that I've been thinking about this throughout all the process. Is forgiveness possible? And I think it's the only way, you know, in different moments, especially in war conflicts or in a very difficult situations. Even in our personal life, you know, I mean, we all have wars, you know, and at the end, wars start with in your head, but also with your neighbor, right? So we need to have this culture of peace as something of our daily lives, no? And apply this in big conflicts, but also in our small conflicts. That's the most difficult, also many times.
Yeah, fascinating. What is the mechanism? Did you have support from the United Nations and to help you contact these people and say, yes, please listen to her and do the interviews? And what is the process of nominating somebody for this award of the Peace Prize?
Well, actually, there is Mr. Gorbachev. Years ago, he thought, okay, no, many of us have a Nobel Peace Prize. Why don't we get together and we start thinking about it, and we use our experience in start thinking about what can we do together, and because many times we don't have the clues for making peace, but we can think about it. And I'm sure you don't make a war like this, no? You need to think about it. You need to have meetings. You need to work. So it's the same with peace. We need to think about it and we need to reflect. So this is somehow the intention of this film. Try to make the audience reflect on this, listening to these people that at least are trying to think about it and find ways.
When you mentioned Gorbachev, and I sort of lived through that period, it seemed like peace was very possible at that time, right? What was happening on the global stage, and remember President Reagan, challenging Gorbachev to tear down the wall. Are we further away or closer to that now? Do you have opinion about that, Susana?
Well, I always think there are two sides, and we need to. Well, I mean, and there has to be dialogue, always before. So actually, a culture of peace is like a preventive medicine, no? Once we make the wars, it's not easy to build a culture of peace. So the first thing is to build a culture of peace is there has not to be a war, because if not, it's destruction and chaos. But yes, also listening to Dalai Lama, he was talking about the spirit of the European Union, and it's a pity. It's a pity because it was something. Imagine different countries, different languages, different cultures. And so that was something that I think it was very special, no? And what Gorbachev did was the end of a Cold War that now I wish Gorbachev was still here, and what, yeah, it's, we need leaders like that. So
Yeah, do you see any leaders emerging like that in your experience? People that you said this person, you know, is gonna help us?
I trust a lot on the citizens, people that work for peace. There is people that have that, no, that have hope. There is people that dreams, no? So I think we need to focus maybe more also on those stories.
Yeah, so very important and positive message, and thank you for doing this interview, and maybe we need to do a part 2 after your film is released. But it sounds like an incredible, auspicious project, and I'm so grateful that I get to talk to you about it. And thank you for what you have to say.
Thanks so much to you.